we all kind of saw the writing on the wall in regard to the consumerism of healthcare leading out of COVID, and the fact that patients had choice, especially with the advent of telehealth, the advent of uh, more cloud-born outpatient organizations and urgent care clinics. Health systems in particular were really behind the eight ball. And during COVID, what we saw was everyone kind of batten down the hatches and reach out to whatever platform was closest, right, to kind of get by, implement certain CPaaS platforms on the front end to stop the bleeding, roll out telehealth on whatever platform they had already been, testing, or things of that nature. But it really didn't. Uh, I should say, in many instances, it wasn't really a cohesive strategy when it comes to that digital patient experience, from that first interaction to billing, and then getting that patient into the kind of life cycle management phase. So during COVID, it gave us some time to really noodle on this, and it started by attending more and more industry specific events, reading industry specific books. We really just entrenched ourselves in with subject matter experts that weren't classically agent related, right? Or that we wouldn't typically find in our channel community, which is good for us too, because there aren't many agents reaching out to these folks. So it's actually oftentimes a very synergistic partnership. Really, we saw that, like you said, CIOs have never had more access to good information about procurement of a given technology, right? It's just super accessible, and the technology works nowadays. I mean, it really does in a big way. And that was a theme that we heard in conversations with our CIO peers. Really, the fact that people, process, and methodology were the areas that they were struggling with the most, right? And how can we improve the organization operationally, clinically, and really streamline that? And so that became the conversation, right? And technology ultimately will serve to facilitate different aspects of that, but it's really secondary to that really consulting that needs to happen, and really problem solving, really. And it's a lot of fun, right? And I got to work with folks who are a lot smarter than me to really learn about what that looks like, and ingratiate myself in the industry and the problems, and develop those partnerships with firms to support our organization. And in that vein, one piece of advice that I'd have for the agent community is, if you're working with an enterprise client, and there's ultimately a huge opportunity to engineer and deploy a unified contact center, don't be afraid to pay $200 an hour for that consultant to come help you on the front end, and or less, right? $100, $200 an hour to help add value for the client, because sometimes, especially with the folks that you may be competing with, that's required. The SBs often have great resources too, as we heard about at the summit, and I'm always happy to help as a resource to my peers. So again, I'll get into a little bit more about some of the industry specific events that we've attended, and some of the other strategies we've employed at the Channel Leadership Summit next month.